Yeah, they're in they're in Rwanda. But yeah, we're streaming now out for people, and I think we have a few other people that are out gallivanting around the world. But yeah, Rosemary's not here today, and Judith is gonna read for us a little bit. Which to me, I'm just saying, Judith, you've got one of the best texts in the Bible today in
Mm.
front of us now, all today to read. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's it's one of the most emotional and um, just uh, it is one of the best written scenes in the Bible. It is, I mean, it's historic, right? So it's laying out a history and a rivalry that's going to go through the ages. So it's definitely important from the standpoint of like what is it establishing, but it's also at a just a level of if you didn't know the history, if you didn't know what it's setting up, it's really, really, really powerful. And um, yeah, we'll see it today. We're going to look at it today, chapter 27. The we didn't last week we ended with the story of Isaac and the wells, the Isaac's rivalry with um, with the Canaanites who lived there at the time. And of course, we had read about his wife Rebecca pretending to be his sister so that he can get along with them, and it kind of sets up a little bit of that as well. But we finished with this discussion about the wells and the kind of the way that they kind of come to terms with it. But remember, part of it is Isaac digging up wells that his father um, had dug before. And one thing I didn't share with you last week, so there's a really wonderful book I just put up here for you to see. It's called Our Father's Wells, and it's about Genesis as a whole. It's not just about this chapter, though I've seen books pretty much just about these couple of chapters. Actually, the next chapter we're reading today, there's a book called Rebecca's Children, which is really just about Jacob and Esau and Jews and Gentiles, the consequences. Yeah, so you can do a book about one chapter. This is really about all of Genesis, though he used the imagery from the part that we read last week. So Peter, his name is Peter Pitzela. I believe he's still with us. Um, he is one of the he's a therapist, very well respected therapist. You can see from his little background, he was raised very assimilated, ended up kind of learning about Jewish texts, studying Jewish texts, after he was, post like 50, 60 years old, he started studying this. So he's probably in his late 80s. Um, and he was already a pioneer in psychodrama, which is a form of therapy where people act out scenes and kind of stage scenes. And he decided to apply that to Torah, to Genesis. It's amazing. I mean, he actually does it not just with Genesis, but Genesis has so many opportunities for people to to play some of this stuff out. It's very, very powerful. I did a session with him when I was in school and rabbinical school, and I'll never forget it. And he did it with other rabbinic students, and yeah, he took a text that you would never have thought you could get anything out of. I mean, literally a long list of begots, and he did it, and people were crying. It was very emotional, and I realized that yeah, Genesis has the power to unlock a lot of a lot of stuff, especially on human relationships, especially on family relationships. So that is a book that I definitely recommend people to they're interested in kind of finding another dimension. It's obviously it's not, well, there's not really a lot of religious dimension, legal, Jewish legal. We don't derive law from Genesis, right? But yeah, this is a book that's going to give you some really interesting insights. So yeah, it was based on the title of what we read last week, Our Father's Wells, or Our Parents' Wells. So that was what we finished with, but we purposely did not read the last two verses. Again, these two verses, I would argue, are not part of the chapter. They were not, they're all part of one chapter, Toldot, which includes the blessing scene we're about to read, and originally the birthright scene that we read a couple weeks ago, where Jacob manipulates Esau, or takes away Esau's right to inheritance of the double portion of inheritance. Um, and so I would actually argue these two verses go with the next idea. These were, again, I'm going to tell you because I think it is actually important and relevant to this. These were written by the P author. And so I think they're a little bit of an insertion, and they make sense when they flow without the next section we're going to read, which is really important section. But for the person who wrote it this way, I'm going to show you after, because you have to see it. You have to see what happens. So these two verses really go with the verses that come after the story is over. So we read about the wells, and now we read this section here, and we begin today. So welcome everyone to family dysfunction at its highest level. The great story from Genesis chapter 27. Judith.
Are we being
And you
recorded?
get to read about one of your namesake, except
It
this
is.
is the non-Jewish namesake.
When Esau was 40 years old, he took to wife Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basmat, daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah.
Yeah. So even though it's two verses, let's just take a moment, digest it, because the next verse doesn't seem to really have anything to do with that. But first of all, Esau is 40, which is fairly old to take anybody to wife. The rabbis like to point out that's because he was playing around for the first 20 or so years of his adulthood. He didn't want to settle down, but he settles down with Canaanite women, Hittites. And we use the word Hittite and Canaanite oftentimes interchangeably, or at least this author does. Of course, the word Judith, Judith, is a very Jewish name. Basemat is not a Jewish name, but Elon is a totally legitimate Hebrew name. Beri is not a super common, name for a man. That's his father, right? That's her father, Judith's father, Judith's father, Beri. But there is a kibbutz Beri, which we've been to on our groups, and we're especially going there now because it was the site of a horrendous massacre on October 7th. So the kibbutz was named after Be'eri, who was not an Israelite. Um, the word Be'er means well, so it's not necessarily named after him, but I mean, they knew that everybody knows that Be'eri in the Bible, at least this Be'eri, is not Israelite. I believe there's other Be'eris too that are mentioned in the Bible. So it's not like a Hebrew, it couldn't be a Hebrew or Canaanite name, but it literally means from well. Elon means a tree, is the is the is the oak tree. It's mentioned a lot in the Bible. Um, so he marries Canaanite women, and the the Bible just flat out says this was this made a bitter wind, bitter feeling, bitter spirit for Isaac and Rebekah. So Isaac doesn't like it either. So even though we've read that Isaac loves Esau, he doesn't love this. He does not like this aspect of Esau's life. Again, if it's a different author, it's not as complicated because one author has the J author has Esau as the favored son of Isaac, and the other author doesn't. So it's not necessarily an issue. But we this is the text we have, and the way that it's always been taught is that yeah, Isaac loved Esau better, but he didn't love everything about him, and he really didn't like this. And maybe again, this kind of will set the stage for where Isaac is not 100% sold on Esau. Just keep that in mind. That's why I wanted to read it today. Because for the rabbis, his love for Esau is problematic. Maybe it's even understandable, but it doesn't come with a wholesale approbation and celebration of who his son is. Okay? So keep that in mind. The Torah has laid that out before the blessing scene, which we're about to read. So that's why I wanted to read it today. So it's fresh in your mind. You see it. And I also think that this scene and the scene that we read, or these two verses and the ones we read after, are critical. Any questions? Anybody want to point out anything about those two verses which kind of like stick out here in between these narratives? Anything? Okay. By the
I,
way, the
I
P
have a
author, the P author as the begot author is the author who always wants to establish genealogies and lineages and stuff like that. Yeah, he doesn't like the P author himself doesn't like intermarriage to some extent. Like so, this isn't surprising. This is not a surprising take from from this dude. Yeah.
I always thought Yehudit was like we said, it was a Jewish name. I always thought it was from Judah.
No, Judah and Yehudit are both from the same idea, which is thanks. So we're going to read about Judah being named in a few weeks
All right, Toda.
when Rachel and Leah, well, Leah first, obviously, start naming their kids, and the name that names each means something, and they tell us why they named them those. They named their kids that name, and they name them. By the way, the moms name them. There's one slight exception in that the mom names him and then Jacob names him. That's Benjamin. But the women generally do the naming in the Bible, or it seems that way. And Yehudit and Judah both come from the Hebrew and, of course, also Canaanite word Todah, which means thank you. So this is, that's what it means. Now, of course, it means Jew today because Judah means Jew, but it's not like it meant that then. So let's take a look at
Okay.
this amazing and very problematic story that we're about to read, which is, um, yeah, buckle up because we haven't read anything like this yet. We will, we will, but this is really one of the most powerfully written stories you'll read in the Bible. All right, let's take a look.
When Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, My son. He answered, Hineni. And he said, I am old now, and I do not know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver and bow, and go out into the open and hunt me some game. Then prepare a dish for me such as I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my innermost blessing before I die.
Okay, I'm tempted to just read the whole scene and then go back and discuss it, but we're going to forget too many things if we do that. Um, I mean, there's so much already here, right? There's already so much that is already laid out for us that I need to just show you a couple things. Obviously, Judith gave us, I think, one of the most important, which is that Isaac calls his son Esau, who we know we've already seen him. We already now have established for the last two sentences that there's something really bad about this guy. However, when his father calls him, he says the most important word in the Torah, Hineni. He says it. He says Hineni. His father wants him.
I'm here.
Here I am.
What do you want?
And his father tells him, this is what I want you to do. Now, his father says, I'm going to die. Well, he says, I don't know how soon I'm going to die, but the implication here is I'm near death. Now, of course, this harkens back to the fact that Esau, when he comes in from the field, which is also mentioned right here, go out to the field, that he comes back famished and says, I'm going to die. So it could be that there's something that Esau has picked up from his father, which is, let's see, they're hypochondriacs, maybe even more so. They're dying. Like, I'm going to die.
Hyperbolists.
I'm just dying.
I'm
And
dying.
so, at some point people stop believing you when you tell them that you're going to die. So people people are still like this. There's kind of like, images of the bubby or your mom who calls you and tells you she's about to die. And you say, "Mom, you've been saying that for 20 years, and eventually it'll happen, but you know, she wants to tell you that she's dying today."
Both
And
both times my children were born, my grandmother across the country, who was in her 90s at that point, said, "You have to bring them. I'm not going to ever meet them."
yeah, and what happened?
I got on a plane with infants. Yep.
It worked.
Of course it did.
So so Esau goes, I mean, we're going to read, he goes and, he's being called for his father. So, first of all, his father assumes that I mean, at some level, it seems like this is what he does, right? Because he says to him, prepare for a dish that the one that I like, the one you make, right? Like the way I like it, which seems to indicate that he's been doing this for a while. Like this isn't the first time Esau's gone out and hunted, which is interesting because like maybe one of the reasons he hunts is because his dad likes it. Well, we read that. I mean, we read specifically it said that Isaac loves Esau because he hunts. So we know it. It's like we don't have to like guess what's going on here. It's already been established. He likes it. He likes that his son does this. Now, it's not kosher. Even if he's killing it, and we assume he's killing a deer or he's killing something that like the animal on the face of it is kosher, but it ain't going to be kosher when Esau hunts it with the quiver and bow. That makes it not kosher. The way it's killed. So the rabbis,
According to the rabbis, thousands of years later.
okay, but they will not accept the fact that Isaac didn't know this. So Isaac knew it and is actually asking his son to violate commandments in order to get what he wants. So this is a little bit of a knock, has to be a knock on Isaac. It's an uncomfortable position. Yes, you're right. We would say, well, he didn't know. That law of kashrut would not have been given, even if they knew which animals were not supposed to be eaten. They wouldn't necessarily know they couldn't be hunted. So yes, that's
But that's all
applying a
they
law.
had at that point.
Yes, that's
I
applying a
mean,
law to Isaac that he didn't necessarily have. However, the rabbis can't operate that way. They have to operate in the fact that he knows the rules. The rules. We already read, or remember that Avraham has been following the rules. The Torah, actually, it said, Torati, my teachings. Right? That's why Isaac is told, your father followed my rules. We already read that. We read that just like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. So the rabbis have, it's an uncomfortable situation for them to have to go, well, what's he eating here? So there's that. There's that as well, which is which is which is this kind of establishing that Isaac is partly responsible for what's happening here, which we can make the argument. Yeah, we've established that by the fact that he likes it. You didn't have to have this scene to tell us that because we already heard it. But we see what happens here, right? We see the situation unfold. We see the kinds of stuff that happens. This is what happens. Go get me some game and make me a dish. And I want to bless you. I want to bless you. Now, again, there are so many readings of this. There's so many ways the rabbis are going to twist this to kind of get to the point of what they want to teach. But on the face of it, what we call the pshat, the literal reading of this, he sends him away to get the food, to hunt. And of course, as we see, Isaac says he cannot see properly. That's critical for the story.
Rabbi, isn't it
The narrator
important?
says, yeah, sorry.
Isn't it important that Isaac makes his blessing conditional?
Another good point. Yeah. Well, yeah, he definitely wants, um, yeah, the translation so that definitely gives you that understanding that it is conditional.
Could it not be translated? I'm looking for it. And then,
The word is ba'avor, which is much more conditional than just key. The word keys could be so, or can be as I'm going to, like I'm already going to do it anyways.
right.
No, Floyd's point is there is something here that is conditional. The word ba'avor means more than just right here. This word means
Okay.
more than just, it's not just the typical um almost indistinguishable so that as, which would be key. It's ba'avor. So the real translation is as the condition ba'avor. When you do this, then I will do it. And it's or through this thing that you're going to do, then this will happen. So yeah, it's very conditional. Which yeah, it is it's another level to this, which is something I'm sure again there's loads and loads of texts on that level of it too. But yes, there's so much here. Anybody else see any little treasures in here? There's definitely a treasure. By the way, my innermost blessing, right? From my soul, from my nefesh, B'terem nefesh, my innermost my innermost soul. I mean, this is the language is really, really, really amazing. Um Kasher ahavti, man. It's not just, I mean, it's the word we use for like, but it's also the word we use for love. I love that food you make. I love that food. Ahavti, right there. Right? I love that food that you make. You season it up, Tom. That's the prepare. You season it. You season it up. Then you give it the tongue, which we still use that word in Yiddish, right? Tom is taste, seasoning, spice, making it All right.
Rebecca had been listening as Isaac spoke to his son, Esau. When Esau had gone out into the open to hunt game to bring home, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speaking to your brother Esau, saying,
I overheard.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
No,
Rebekah
no.
said to her son Jacob, I overheard your father speaking to your brother Esau today, saying, Bring me some game and prepare a dish for me to eat, that I may bless you with God's approval before I die.
Okay, before we move on to what he does, let's look at what Rebecca does. And again, as I've already argued, she's really one of the most compelling characters in all of Genesis and maybe in all of the Bible. And she is a prime mover, and she does a few things here just in what she says, right? First of all, we know that she's listening. That's not a question because it says the narrator tells us that she overheard it. She waits for him to leave, it says, and then she goes to Jacob and says, I overheard your father. I'm just going to say, yeah, the reason they say overheard is it's hine shamati. It doesn't just say shamati. So they're translating the word hine, which is like I was there and heard it, which is kind of like I was there, but he didn't know I was there. So she does kind of, I mean, I would say make it clear that she wasn't told this, she heard it. I mean, we assume that Isaac doesn't know she heard it because he can't see very well. And so the assumption is that, she's able to do lots of listening and spying because her husband can't see well. There's another possibility, which is that the rabbis love, which is he knows that she's going to overhear him. He knows when he says it that she's going to hear it. So he's there's a rabbinic tradition that Isaac is complicit in this, that Isaac can't, for better or use of, he can't screw his son over openly. He has to do it, allow this thing to go, which means that he is acting throughout the scene because he has essentially scripted the scene. That's an idea that he isn't, that he's not, that he's somewhat complicit in this and that he's not fooled. I don't know that that's warranted, but some of the rabbis like that because they don't like what Rebecca does if she's just deceiving her husband, because clearly the whole thing's problematic. It's just a question of how do you make sense of this if you don't want the people to be manipulative and lying and just not good people in a very simple way. But there's a lot going on here that you can make the argument if family dysfunction has been playing out for years, maybe now, but by this point, if they are close to 40 for decades, people know the way these things are playing out. Everybody knows what's going to happen. So they go about their roles, and maybe occasionally, maybe this is one of the examples, they're going to exploit this game that they do always, and they're going to make something happen out of the roles that everybody plays. We're going to be able to throw a wrench in this and achieve something. Now, when Rebecca calls Jacob and tells her what happens, she doesn't tell him exactly the way it happened, right? She embellishes. There's a key embellishment here. The game part, that's pretty much the same. Go out, bring me some game from the field, right? Same thing, Tamim. I will I will eat it and I will bless you. But what does she add?
Lifnei Adonai.
Yeah, she throws God into this. Lifnei Adonai, with God's approval. Now, on one hand, this is troubling because she's now brought God into this, right? This is not just family dysfunction anymore. This has theological consequences, covenantal consequences. This is like now something bigger than our family. Now, of course, Jake, I mean, he's listening to his mother. His mother is telling him what's happening. Rebecca didn't hear that. I mean, Esau never said that. However, remember, it was Rebecca who went to ask God what's happening, right? Back in chapter 25. And God told her what was going to happen. Did she tell her husband? Did she tell Isaac years ago what's going on? Or does she keep it to herself completely to this moment? Or has she been coaching her son Jacob all along for this kind of moment? But she says, God, Lifnei Adonai. By the way, that's one of the ways we know it's the J author because it says Adonai. It's got. So, Lifnei Moti is before he dies. Your dad says he's going to die, but also it's Lifnei Adonai. So the translation's fine. The translation's perfect. I'm not bragging on the translation at all, but I want you to know that in Hebrew it's even more powerful because she says Lifnei Adonai, Lifnei Moti. It sounds like something that the dad would have said. Or maybe she imagined he would say, or maybe she would like her husband to say. But Lifnei Adonai, Lifnei Moti is the same word, Lifnei,
Before
before my
God,
death, before God, right?
before God, before I
It's
die.
such a powerful phrase in Hebrew because of the repetition of the word Lifnei. I mean, the way you could translate it is before God, before I die. I mean, I mean, I get it. I mean, I get why they don't translate because before God isn't the meaning of God's approval necessarily, but in front of
And
God.
it's not a
So
great translation. Up at the top of your screen, it says show other translations.
yeah, it's not there anymore. It was.
Oh, okay.
I
But
can bring it up. I
if
guarantee you, I guarantee you none of the translations you're gonna like on this. That's the
God's approval without an eyes, I may bless you.
no. Yeah, this one is. This one is.
Before
This
God,
is it.
before my death.
I knew it. It's Everett Fox. It's Everett Fox's translation. Everett Fox did a translation. Gosh, I remember I was in rabbinical school and he did it. Everett Fox is a literature professor, and it's a really good translation of the Torah if you want to hear the original rhyme and language as much as close as possible. Which, by the way, is what the King James tried to do in the translation. But yeah, this his five books of Moses is one that tried to keep the original Hebrew. So that's why it says, "I will eat it and give you my blessing before Adonai, before Yud before my death."
Didn't the older version too try to keep the original
The
Hebrew?
altar translation did as well. In my estimation, the and it's not just my estimation, by the way. It was Richard Friedman loved Everett Fox's translation too. Um, I think he liked Alter's translation. I mean, I don't know, maybe there was a rivalry there because Alter was at Berkeley and he was at UCSD. There were UC rivals. I don't know, but and everyone like Alter's is more famous, but I like the Everett Fox translation. If you're looking for a different translation, want to read it in a different way, a really different voice, the Everett Fox translation is really good. So it's here though. It's in his Safari. You can read it. So yeah, he did it. He did it before Adonai, before my dad. Yeah. So again, it's a poetic translation, and it's not necessarily, conveying like what we think the meaning of it is, which is approval. But wow, it is a really powerful phrase. And that's why I said it when we read it. That's why I put up the Hebrew so that we can, look at the Hebrew. So that is Rebecca's retelling. Again, some people have pointed out that Isaac is physically blind, and as we're about to see, it seems like everyone else is morally blind. That's been pointed out for thousands of years. But yeah, it's everything here is so rich with meaning, and every word has conveys something here. And it's not like it it's intentional. It's not, just remember, the person who wrote this intentionally wrote it this way. Okay. All right, let's read the rest of Rachel's commandment to her son now, her instruction.
Now, my son, listen carefully as I instruct you. Go to the flock and fetch me 2 choice kids, and I will make of them a dish for your father, such as he likes. Then take it to your father to eat, in order that he may bless you before he dies.
So she doesn't argue that this is a death moment for Isaac. She's not going to argue that. By the way, I want to point out that based on at least the math from the P author, which again might be problematic if you want to separate the authorship, Isaac's going to live for like 100 more years. So just so you know, like this, at least according to the way that this moves out, no, he lives for 80 more years.
Like any good Jewish mother,
Yeah.
right? I'm dying. I'm
So
dying.
but she doesn't argue that, right? She doesn't
Be good
argue
to
that
me, or
he's
I'm
going
going to cut you out of the will. Yeah.
yeah. But look what she does, right? She says, I will prepare it. You go out to the flocks, get me the kids, get me the goats, the gedi, and I will kill them, right? I will make them a dish, right? It could be that he's killing them and she's cooking it. But the rabbis like to point out this is the way Rebecca and Jacob are living, which is according to the Torah. They're eating kosher meat, and it seems as though they're slaughtering said meat. They're not just hunting it. They're having it die quickly and in a kosher way. Right? I mean, it doesn't say that, but it seems as though they're slaughtering some goats to eat, not hunting them. Okay. So it seems like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, whereas Isaac and Esau are not doing what they're supposed to be doing when it comes to eating. So I'm going to make it, right? I will make it, and you will take it to him that he may bless you, right? So it's going to be, I am going to do this so that you can get the blessing. And again, the same word is used there, ba'avur, with the condition, right, that he is going to bless you. So so it's definitely there. The condition. Any comments? Any questions about Rebecca's command so far? Instructions to her son. Well, let's read Jacob's answer, shall we?
Jacob answered his mother Rebekah, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm a smooth-skinned one. If my father touches me, I shall appear to him as a trickster and bring upon myself a curse, not a blessing. But his mother said to him, Your curse, my son, be upon me. Just do as I say and go fetch them for me.
So this is Jacob's very thoughtful response.
He doesn't say, I won't trick my father. He's saying, Mom, you missed this part.
Yeah, he's saying, "What if we get caught?" Yeah, that's his answer.
Get caught.
His answer isn't, "Mom, why would you trick Dad?" It's, "Mom, we're gonna get caught." That's that's different than saying it's not a nice thing to do to Dad. He does not say it's not a nice thing to do to Dad. That's why this story is so amazingly well written, because it's not there and it's intentionally not there. There's no way it's not there, because not only does he not say, "I don't want to do that to my dad. I don't want to be caught. I will be a trickster and bring up." He's already thought about the consequences to what he's doing. It's not like he's oblivious to it. He says the whole thing, "I'm playing it out in my head with you. I don't want to get caught. And I don't want the consequences of being caught." And so Rebecca says, "It'll be on me. I'll take it." Which is weird because, like, I mean, do you really have the power to take on the curse? But the assumption would be, when Isaac discovers what happens and says, "No, Jacob, you don't get a blessing. You tricked me." And but she's saying he can't do that. It's on me. If he curses anybody, he can only curse me. I don't know. She seems to believe that that's transferable, and she seems to believe that this is going to work. And I mean, I'm going to ruin it for you, but Jacob seems to believe it too.
Well,
So,
don't all mothers say that? Take it on me. You know what I mean? If it's your child, you want to protect your
well,
child. Take it on.
listen, in her mind, she's moving forward Jewish history, right? In her mind, she's making this all happen because her husband is oblivious to what's supposed to be happening, which is that Esau in no way, shape, or form can be the future of our family. And she's saying to herself, we have a son who can help move this stuff forward. I know it because God told me. This isn't my feeling. I know it because God told me. I'm sure of it. So she knows in her mind, she's just moving forward God's plan, which again is one of the reasons why in Jewish tradition, Rebecca has to some extent no choice. And of course, Jacob is like his mom, which is, "I'm going to get this accomplished no matter what, even if I have to break the rules in order to do that." Now, one can also make the argument that there's an important thing that the J author is going to do, which is show that nobody, not one person is going to escape the Bible unscathed. Nobody is getting out of here without having some problems, which is huge, because the J author is going to lay out 100% why the Canaanites are bad, 100% why the Edomites are bad, but we're better, but we're not perfect. And there's something so powerful about what the J author does in establishing, to me, our history, which is, okay, we're doing some good things as the Jewish people, but we're not perfect. We're hardly perfect. The J author is going to establish that for us early on. Can also make the argument, just have to be better than everybody, just have to be a little bit more ethical than everybody else. But nobody here is without fault. Nobody is here without fault. So again, there are serious failings in these characters. And some would argue there are situations where they find themselves in where they have to do unconscionable things. The J author definitely believes that sometimes those kind of things have to happen. It's not easy and it's not comfortable to read, and it makes us uncomfortable, and it should make us feel uncomfortable. But for whatever reason, you can make bigger theological determinations from this. We live in a world where sometimes we got to make really bad decisions in order to do the right thing. And don't think that we get away with it, or that there's not a cost to our soul and to our psychology for doing this kind of stuff, because Jacob is going to have this on him forever. The Jewish people are going to have, we're going to have this issue that we're going to deal with forever, which is, yeah, we got to figure out a way to live. And it's sometimes kind of messy. I don't want to get into contemporary politics. I'm not going to get into, like, I just want you to think about it. I want you to think about it. Are we not living in a time today where the decisions in front of us are oftentimes not good ones? There is no good answer. And the more that we look at it really honestly, the more we realize, yeah, these are not good choices. These are not clear cut, hey, this is an easy thing for me to do kind of thing. This is a horrible thing for me to do. This is it's hard for me to live with myself kind of thing. But what other choice do I have? I can't survive in this world unless I do this right now. It's a tough answer. Viktor Frankl wrote, you know, of his experience surviving in Auschwitz, surviving the camps, something very powerful. I mean, everyone talks about, man, the search for meaning, and he wrote a couple of really powerful books, Viktor Frankl, about, and essentially introduced a new form of psychology, the idea of helping people find meaning as a way to survive and make it through life, which he got from experience of surviving. But he said in the camps, it was not the kind, compassionate people that survived. It was the worst of us, is what he said. It was the person who could take another scrap of bread.
Somebody else.
And that's how people lived. Look, it's hard for me to, essentially was saying that the softer people, the kinder people didn't survive. That's a tough thing to read. That's a tough thing to read. I mean, he ended up living, I think, to 102, 103 years old, something like that. I mean, he lived a long time, but he lived a long time with a whole lot of guilt. But there have been many times in Jewish history, and I don't think we're free of it yet, where we have to make decisions that are really uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. Yeah, it seems like we're in one now. I mean, I feel we're in one of the tougher, ethically tougher times today. Again, we don't use it as an excuse. We don't say, well, I had no choice. You say, I'm doing this and there's going to be a consequence to this. It's not, that's a horrible thing to say, because you're saying somebody's going to pay for this. So just do it, right? Go out and do it. And here's what happens.
He got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared a dish, such as his father liked. Rebekah then took the best clothes of her older son Esau, and which were there in the house, and had her younger son Jacob put them on. And she covered his hands and the hairless part of his neck with the skins of the kids. Then she put in the hands of her son Jacob the dish and the bread that she had prepared. He went to his father and said, Father. And he said, Yes, which of my sons are you? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Pray, sit up and eat of my game, that you may give me your innermost blessing.
So he does what his mother says to do. He does what he says to do. And Rebecca does something really also very clever here, right? Which is she takes Esau's clothes and puts them on him. Now, she knows her husband can't see very well, so she doesn't do it so he can see it. Why does he do it? Why does she do it? Why is he wearing this clothes?
So
Hello?
that he feels it, so that he walks like it, feels like it, acts
So,
like
so that he smells like it.
it. Oh, yeah, that too.
So that he smells like his brother. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And of course, she covers his hands and the hairless part of his neck with the skins of the kids.
The kids are going to smell too because they're fresh.
Well, yeah, but whether or not they smell, it's the feel, right? So all the senses are used here. The taste, right? The food is going to taste a certain way. The 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 smell of him is going to be there.
So, in a real sense, Jacob is becoming Esau in his evil participation in this scheme. Uh, it seems to me that he's borrowing more than clothes here.
Though I will tell you this, the rabbis like to tell you they both have their faults, Jacob and Esau. Esau's faults are not the trickery part. Esau will just come out and beat you up. He just hits you. Jacob is the guy you don't turn your back on because he's going to thrust a knife in your back when you turn around. So they're both got their problems, but Esau will just hit you in the face, right in front of you, right, just punch you. So they both have their problems. The actual the interesting thing about the way the rabbinic presentation of Esau is that Esau isn't smart enough to do this kind of stuff either. And of course, the rabbis also are setting us up for the eternal challenge of the Jewish people, which is that we don't have the physical might of Esau, so we have to use our minds. We can't pound people. Well, and again, I want to be careful because I don't want to make too many comparisons to modern day Israel. But the understanding was always that Israel's never going to have as many people. Israel's not going to have an army that's going to be able to overwhelm the other armies. But our intelligence on the ground has to be much better. We have to have locations of every plane. So like in the 6 Day War, when Israel bombed Egypt's Air Force into non-existence, the way that they did that is by knowing which planes were actually decoys and which ones were real. Because we have evidence. I mean, there's photographs of the fact that Israel knew which planes on the ground were decoy planes so that they didn't run bombing runs over those decoys and waste time and munitions on decoys, that they hit the things that were real. That only comes about through intelligence on the ground, through spies. Egypt knew it. That's why they threw out every Jew after the 6 Day War. They said, we can't have Jews on the ground here helping Israel. Israel did the same thing, obviously, in Iran just now. So Israel has to have that kind of intelligence. So Israel's essentially been operating like Jacob because the Jewish people have been operating like Jacob. We're never going to be able to fight off, a crusader battalion that's going to come through the town. So we better be able to get out of here as soon as possible. Be able to have hiding places wherever they are as soon as possible at a moment's notice, because that's the only way we're going to survive. So Jews always had to survive on their intelligence, on their wits. And that's been the archetype. That is the story that's played out, is that, yeah, that's the only way we can survive. So there is more of this idea that, not that Jacob becomes Esau, though there is this understanding that sometimes you have to dress a certain way and act a certain way in order to get something done. But that's still part of Jacob's cleverness. That right? That's still a matter of Jacob using his mind. I remember years ago, this I actually had a conversation about like the fact that this language is still there for people. They still operate under this is amazing. Years ago, when we were in the midst of a discussion about charter schools, which again, for me was an issue that I was very passionate about. I put a lot of my time and effort into it, but people didn't understand it. They thought, well, I was trying to create a Jewish school that wasn't really a Jewish school with taxpayer money. It was never the issue. I wanted to create a school where Jewish kids could come, people of all backgrounds could learn Hebrew, but that was never a place for us to trick people into the fact that it was a Jewish school, but not really a Jewish school. That was like Gentiles believe that, and even some Jews believe that. And I once had a conversation. We went to a school board hearing. This wasn't in Santa Clarita. It was in another city that we got approved in. And the Chabad rabbi came, and we got approved. It was in Ventura County, and the Chabad rabbi was there, and he came up to me because I had spoken at the meeting, and he said to me essentially, he actually quoted this. He quoted this scene of Jacob and Esau, and he said, when you go there dressed as a Gentile, like me dressed as Esau, I can speak to people like I was Jacob dressing as Esau, convincing the school board, as actually a county meeting, that I'm there to trick them into doing this. And I was like, this isn't a trick. Like, but he in his mind was saying, oh yeah, you're doing what Jacob does, what we do, which is trick people by dressing. First of all, I dress like this all the time, but whatever. I'm not, but whether I do or not, whether he thought I'd go back to wearing a black hat afterwards, the reality was that's what he thought. He thought that I was dressing like Esau to try to get my agenda through, which was all along a trick. But
But
I mean, he
they
said
come
that.
from a more proselytizing, they like Christians too. They
Yeah,
proselytize Jews.
they are, but they're only proselytizing amongst the Jewish people. But I would
Right.
say this: it is also an ends justify the means type of argument where everyone is really out to get you, and you got to do what you got to do. Now, I will tell you this: not that I've changed in that way, in the way of like you got to do what you got to do kind of things, but I I understand there's a certain there was a certain and I don't say it's naivete. There was a certain luxury that I think I had and other Jewish people had. Judith just said I took off my kippah at the LA County meeting. Yes, I did. There was a lot of times I didn't wear a
And
kippah.
it was Sukkot.
I know. I know. I very rarely a public meeting ever would go at all without a kippah. I felt uncomfortable. But I will tell you this. I I I I think probably because of what's happened over the last few years and realizing that there was a lot more anti-Semitism out there than I chose to believe because I didn't feel it. I didn't experience it as a kid. It wasn't part of my experience that I was a little oblivious to it and I didn't I had the luxury of saying I'm not going to do that in most cases. And I I I don't know. I mean, I think it's not that I get it more now, but I understand that I've been very lucky up until now to not have to make these kinds of decisions. Again, these are not like there's a spectrum. I mean, I just came back from Theresienstadt where, we were walking through the, Theresian ghetto and knowing that this ghetto that was created by the Nazis to be the show pony of ghettos where Jews were having art galleries and if you call them art galleries, but performances and things like that. These creative people were all put at Terezin so that the Red Cross could say, "Oh, look at how well the Germans are treating the Jews," and knowing that they were just shipping them to other camps right out of Terezin, um, and knowing that there was a Judenrat, there was a Jewish council that was making that decision. There were Jews who were making the decisions on which Jews were going to be sent. I mean, like that. I mean, that's that's a that's a place where people are making decisions that, like, how do you, any decision that you make, you think you got a hard decision. This is not, you're you're just the stupidest thing to talk about the decisions you've got on your plate. But I do understand that there is a spectrum, and that we're now on a spectrum where we're being put into uncomfortable positions in order to protect the Jewish people. That's all I want to say about it. I'm not going to get any deeper into it. I'm just telling you, I've felt it myself tremendously over the last, especially the last 3 years. And I guess Israelis have dealt with it, on a deeper level for a long time, for almost 80 years. So Jacob, our decisions as Jacob are not always easy decisions, and they carry moral consequences that I guess we got to say are not easy. So let's I'm uncomfortable even thinking about it. So um so um she puts the skins on him. Gives him the food, and when he comes there to his father says to him, "Come," right? Comes to him and he says, "Hineni." Jacob just said Hineni. There's the Hineni. And he says to him, his father says to him, "Which of my sons are you?" And Judith, you didn't read this line, I don't think, but
No.
let's read, because I'm going to tell you how the rabbis parse this out.
Jacob said to his father, I am Esau. I have read this. I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me.
Okay.
Pray sit up and eat of my game, that you may give me your innermost blessing.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
So the innermost blessing, the blessing from your soul, from your nefesh. Now the rabbis parse this a little interestingly so that Jacob doesn't really lie to his father, which is crazy because clearly he's lying to his father, but they don't like that he's lying flat out to his father. So he says to him, Esau is your firstborn. Not I am Esau, but like sometimes it'll translate it as, indeed, Esau is your firstborn.
Indeed, Esau, your firstborn.
Right.
I am.
So that's one of the ways the rabbis write it out so that he doesn't flat out lie to him, which is, yeah, he verifies to him who Esau is and then proceeds to tell him what happened. Now,
the child's illustrated version of this story that I had said, Esau, your firstborn. It didn't say I am.
Yeah, well, it says the word Anochi. And so
I know,
I know it's a tough one for the rabbis to do. And of course, they know what's going to happen. They know the way the rest of the story unfolds, that he flat out lies to him. But this deception, and we know he's lying to him, and we know he doesn't want to lie to him, or at least, is worried about the consequences of lying to him, because he's already said what it is. The rabbis really don't like Jacob lying to his father like this, so that's why they twist it a little bit. But it seems pretty close, especially because of what's going to happen here.
Isaac said to his son, "How did you succeed so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because the eternal your God granted me good fortune." Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not."
Yeah, so it's very clear that he's,
Jacob knows exactly what's going on.
whether or not,
I mean,
whether
Isaac knows exactly
yeah,
what's
whether
going
or not. So it seems as though Isaac does know, which is why, again, this whole scene is just considered to some extent performatory, and this is going to allow Isaac an out so that he doesn't have to bless his son. But you know, the other possibility, which again the rabbis seem to be establishing, which is he is 100% tricked, and he's tricked on every level. He's tricked because they use every sense that Isaac does have, which is his sense of smell, his sense of taste, his sense of touch, and even his hearing is going to be played around with. So we assume that all of these other senses are heightened because he doesn't have the sense of a very good sense of sight. So that they're playing with him. And yeah. But look at what Jacob does.
That's even more proof that Isaac knew exactly what was going on, because we know that when one's sight dims, one's other senses become more, even when you're an old person, become more attuned to the world. He knows exactly what's going on.
It's possible. Yeah, I mean,
Innermost blessing isn't necessarily the highest most blessing, as it were, or the expected blessing. I think Isaac knows what's going on.
okay, and the rabbis, by the way, accept that. However, we also know that he got the spiritual. If he gets the spiritual here, he already got the physical. He got the physical by taking the inheritance. So yeah, maybe there were supposed to be two. He's already got one of them, which he wasn't supposed to get. So now he's going to wind up with the other one. So this is tough. But yeah, it's tough. We'll read a little bit more, but again, I do want to say that for me, one of the more troubling features of this is that Jacob invokes God in this. When Isaac says to him, I mean, whether or not Isaac really knows what's going on here, Jacob just said, not, "Hey, I got really lucky. I found some food really. I got lucky. I hunted and killed the animal right away. I just went out." He says, "God helped me. Your God helped me." I mean, this is twisted. That to me is twisted. You can say, again, I'm not saying it's not there, that Isaac knows what's happening. But the fact that you'd invoke God in this, I mean, that's one of the features, again, of this story that is so amazingly rich and layered, is that Jacob is going to throw God into this.
Rabbi, if an argument that would support that Isaac knows what's going on would be the lack of the moral wrestling with this problem that Rebecca and Jacob have. We don't see them, thinking to themselves or even having a discussion, is this a right thing or is this a wrong thing to trick your father like this? You don't see that. So it would seem to me at least that it's another argument in favor of Isaac's in on the performance.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely, I've definitely seen it more today than I have. I mean, I've talked about it in the past that he seems to know, but there,
Why? Why?
this level though, where I mean, Jacob didn't have to say, God granted me good fortune. I mean, that's like that's that's over and above just performance, though. That's the thing. It's like, did you really have to bring God into this? I'm deeply uncomfortable with 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 again, you can make it. I mean, Jacob just can't help himself, right? He thanks God for everything. I mean, I know the justifications for it are that Jacob really does feel that, right? But it doesn't seem like it, and especially when we see Jacob in the next chapter, it doesn't seem like Jacob has any conception of God. Just so you know,
Yeah,
the
you
rabbis don't like that. The rabbis want
you
Jacob to
could
be sitting in the study hall. When it says he's in the tents, he's actually studying, right? But I would go with no. Jacob is just he's just the kind of guy that will do what he has to do to survive, and he will do what he has to do, and even say, but think about it. Like, would Esau have said that? Would Esau have said, "Hey, it's because of God"? Like, it doesn't seem like Esau would have said that. So, if anything, he's giving away who he is by saying that. But I don't know. Maybe Esau would have said that. I mean, it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like
you could
Esau lived
argue that
with a
he's
real
taking
sense of
God's name
God.
in vain.
What?
You could argue that he's taking God's name in vain.
100%.
Yeah, he's taking God's name in a
100%.
lie.
He
Yeah.
just invoked God in his trickery.
And the rabbis don't see that, or they do?
Well, they have a problem, which is that Jacob cannot be that bad, and a lot of them seeing it. Jacob's just he thanks God for everything. You know, he's always thanking God. Oh, thank God, Baruch Hashem. You know, like he's just that's just the way he is. Now, of course, that's not what he said. He said, your God, right? Your God. He doesn't say my God because, again, I would argue that Jacob doesn't seem like he really understands it yet. And he doesn't, you know, when he says God will be, he doesn't say God will be mad. I mean, that my dad will curse me. Whatever the curse is that a God curse or is that like, a like a witch's curse. Like there's like God will curse me. He says my dad will curse me, or there'll be a curse on me. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think Jacob really has a real sense of God yet, but that's my take. But the rabbis won't have that. The rabbis will be, he does have a sense of God, and he's invoking God because he wants God's protection the whole way. The whole way. So here's what happens when, well,
So Jacob drew close to his father Isaac, who felt him and wondered, the voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy, like those of his brother Esau, and so he blessed him.
yeah. So now we're going to get to the blessing. So they try all the sensory tricks on him, except the fact that the hearing never, he doesn't feel comfortable with that. And he says, the voice is the voice of Jacob, yet the hands are the hands of Esau. So he at least still he's going into this going, I'm really not too, I'm really not so sure, but he didn't recognize him, right? So they trick him. At least that's what it says. And it is weird. Like if you're going to say that Isaac knows what's going on, he doesn't he doesn't go into this final situation of actually giving him the blessing without us knowing he's really uncomfortable with this. He doesn't, something's not right, at least the way the story reads on the Peshat, on the basic level. So here's the blessing. Oh, wait, there's one more. Sorry. I forgot.
He asked, are you really my son Esau? And when he said, I am, he said, serve me, and let me eat of my son's game, that I may give you my innermost blessing. So he served him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank.
So he gives them more than just the food, he gives them wine.
Then his father Isaac said to him, come close and kiss me, my son. And he went up and kissed him. And he smelled his clothes, and he blessed him, saying, the smell of my son is like the smell of the fields that God has blessed.
Okay, so
I don't remember that line. Isn't that
yeah,
funny?
so we're going to get into the blessing. I forgot that the blessing is kind of buried into this beautifully. I mean, beautifully blessed into um this approach, right? The kiss, this kiss and the getting so close to him. Now, of course, this is interesting because later on, Jacob and Esau are going to have a moment like this. But um, but this closeness that they get to. Now, Isaac in this moment either is complicit with this too, or he really does feel that this is Esau. In which case, Jacob is having a moment with his father now that he may never have had, which is he's feeling his father's love in a way that he never felt it because his father didn't feel that way about him. That is a crazy moment for Jacob, not for Isaac, because Isaac doesn't know. Isaac just thinks this is Esau. But Jacob for this in this moment is feeling what, just bear with me for a second here. What type of relationship his dad has with his brother that he never had. That might have been in that moment. I mean, isn't it just possible that's just an overwhelming moment for Jacob?
Yeah, that would be so painful to me if I went and, well, you know what? When my mother was dying, she called my sister my name, and it just caused all for years so much pain, so much pain. You know?
Yeah. That's why I said there's some pretty heavy stuff that we see in our own lives, right? And the way it plays out. And it plays out in a lot of ways. Nowadays, Gail, because it's not so much the eyes, but the way that so many people play out their lives today, losing their mental faculties and saying stuff because, was it the truth all along, or was it but saying something to somebody that they're just not aware of who they're talking to, and they say something because they think they're talking to someone who died, or they think that they're talking to the other person, a spouse, a first spouse. Um, yeah, there's things that are said that, like, it was that real? Was that the real feeling that that I didn't know? It happens, and it happens um, a lot nowadays. Maybe it happened a lot then too. I mean, it's not like people didn't have degenerative, you know, Alzheimer's and dementia then. They did clearly did, but you know, it happens so frequently today because we don't die of a tooth abscess at 35, that yeah, that people end up hearing stuff that we probably never should have heard. I mean, they could definitely have not had that have to happen before the person that they, yeah, died. So it happens a lot. And this happens because of Isaac not being able to see properly. But Jacob feeling his father hold him in a way that he never felt before. I mean, to me, that's an overwhelming scene. Speaking to him like that and never having that before. I mean, maybe that's not the shot, maybe that's not the simplest reading, but I think it's pretty close. I mean, I don't think that's a heavy distance, a heavy lift to get to. And here's the blessing.
May God give you of the dew of heaven and the fat of the earth, abundance of new grain and wine. Let peoples serve you and nations bow to you. Be master over your brothers, and let your mother's sons bow to you. Cursed be they who curse you, blessed they who bless you.
Let's the two verses that the blessing is over. Um, Again, he weaves it beautifully into the smell of the fields, right? That God has blessed. And then he says, let the fields, let the earth give forth its blessing to you. And then let your other peoples serve you. The assumption being that if Esau had gotten this blessing, then everyone would be essentially an Edomite that was connected to Abraham and Isaac. It would be Abraham, Isaac, and Esau instead of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Um, but of course, that couldn't happen. Um,
Are
so
there any groups in Judaism, you know how the Reform movement and now into the conservative movement, we include Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, and some people include the concubines as well, Bilhah and
Zilpah,
yeah. Are there
Bilhah.
any Jewish organizations, any Jewish theological bents, if you will, that throw Esau in there too?
No, but we're going to talk about that. I mean, we have to talk about it. Let's finish the story, but
Okay.
we got to talk about Esau. We have to. So again, he's going to serve you. Esau is going to wind up serving you now because I blessed you. And again, the blessing that Abraham gets, which is then given to Isaac, which now has been passed to Jacob, at least now through this. You can make the argument Jacob is going to get a blessing from God. He's going to get a connection to God, or at least a connection, if not the blessing. But um, cursed be those who curse you and blessed who bless you, which is what Abraham was told right at the beginning. So um, it's a blessing that's going to go um, through me as it did through your grandfather. So, and by the way, based on the ages of how long people lived, again, I wouldn't say it's the P author, but at least in the P author, Abraham would have known Jacob. It's not like Jacob wouldn't have been at his funeral. Jacob would have been at his funeral, even though he's born late in Isaac's life. Jacob, I mean, Abraham lives 170 years. He would have lived to Jacob's birth, but yeah, he's blessed by the same blessing that Abraham and Yitzhak got. Now, here's the end of the scene.
No sooner had Jacob left the presence of his father Isaac, after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, than his brother Esau came back from his hunt. He too prepared a dish and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father sit up and eat of his son's game, so that you may give me your innermost blessing." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son Esau, your firstborn." Isaac was seized with violent trembling. "Who was it then," he demanded, "that hunted game and brought it to me? Moreover, I ate of it before you came, and I blessed him. Now he must remain blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst into wild and bitter sobbing and said to his father, "Bless me too, father."
Now, again, the setup is as soon as Jacob leaves, Isaac Esau comes in, gives him the food, and says to him, "Sit up, Dad. I've got the food. Give me the blessing." Now, he doesn't say it, and the rabbis point out he doesn't say it in a very loving way, possibly. Now, Isaac, of course, at least shows that he's completely flabbergasted. And it does say he's seized with violent trembling. The word is cherad, same word we use for the charedim, the tremblers, the people who tremble before God. That's what we call the Orthodox, ultra Orthodox Jews in Israel today. Charedim comes from the word trembling, trembling before God. And he says to him, "I don't know. I thought it was you." And I blessed him, and he has to stay that way. Sorry, it's the way it is. Now, again, if this is a performance, that's a very quick and easy way to say, end of discussion. There's nothing I can do. It's out of my hands. Can't do anything. But it doesn't end there, folks. Okay, maybe that's the case. I'm not saying it's not. In the back of his mind, Isaac knew. Of course he knew. I mean, he can see he's says it in the last moment before he blesses them, and he's here. He's here now, shaking. But Esau crying, sobbing, and saying, "Bless me too, Father." That's here, folks. You can't ignore that. Now, the rabbis would like to ignore it. They really would. They would love for that scene not to be there, for that crying not to be there. This is a very powerful, and some would say, this is the eternal wail of Esau, which, by the way, makes it even into the Christian scriptures. There's a scene in one of the epistles where they talk about Esau crying. Esau is not a hero, by the way, in the Christian scriptures either. I want to make it clear. It's not like they say, "Oh, well, we're the children of Esau." They don't say that. But Esau, at the very least, he understands what this means. The consequences of this are real for him, and he wants a blessing. You could say, "Well, he doesn't care about his birthright." By the way, if that's the case, if in the back of his mind he doesn't care about the birthright because he wants the blessing that he's owed, that only makes Esau more of a hero. I don't care about the physical material stuff. I want the blessing of my father. And all his life he thinks he's getting it because he knows he's his father's favorite. He knows he's his father's favorite. And now that's been taken from him. That has now been stolen. And he says it. Look what he says. This is what Jacob said. I mean, what Isaac says first. But he answered.
But he answered, "Your brother came with guile and took away your blessing." Esau said, "Was he then named Jacob, that he might supplant me these 2 times? First he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing." And he added, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered, saying to Esau, "But I have made him master over you. I have given him all his brothers for servants, and have sustained him with grain and wine. What then can I still do for you, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, father? Bless me too, father." And Esau wept aloud.
Okay, so this scene, the back and forth of, "I need to just give me something." Esau wants a blessing. I I understand it's not that blessing, but give me something. Give me a blessing. I mean, to me, Esau is showing a level of spirituality, a level of of connection that if he's such a physical and you know if he's such a ruffian and thug, he seems to be pretty spiritual here in this moment. By the way, it says, I've given him all his brothers for servants. What brothers? We haven't heard about any of the brothers. Are these the children of concubines that Isaac has? Are these, I mean, are these the other people in the camp? We call them brothers. They're really cousins and, you know, kind of hangers on, but they're part of the extended family, but they're really maybe slaves. I don't know.
What's the
But
word for brothers?
the word that's used here is achiv,
Achiv.
achav. That these are your kol echav, all your brothers. Um, but it seems like they were maybe like you don't say I'm giving you brothers for servants. I mean, it seems like because it says avadim, it says they're going to be servants for you. It seems like maybe they were servants already. But I mean, look, we don't know who they are. We haven't met them. There's nothing in the text that says that Isaac had any more kids with any other concubines or any other ladies. But it does seem like there are people in the tribe, if you will, which I think makes sense. So Esau wants something. Bless me too, Father. And again, crying, weeping, weeping, wept aloud. Like people can hear it. Everyone in the camp can hear it, according to the tradition. Everyone hears this guy wailing. What happens? Gives him this.
And his father Isaac answered, saying to him, See, your abode shall enjoy the fat of the earth and the dew of the heaven above. Yet by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restive, you shall break his yoke from your neck.
Now that's a really important little tidbit right there, because the Edomites do indeed serve Israel and Judah, specifically Judah, for a long time, which of course is the J author. But one of the things we know is that at a certain point there was a revolt. The Edomites revolted against Judites when the kings of Judah were going through a weak period. So there seems to be an understanding that maybe this happened. The J author's writing this after the time that the Edomites freed themselves from the Judites, from the kingdom of Judah. So that's a possibility, right? Of course. So that's a possibility. So like that helps us date when the J author was written. That this was written after the Edomite revolt, which is, about 800, 700, around that the early eights, beginning of the sevens, BCE. Now, however, there's another possibility that actually refers to a period 700 years later, the very end of the period where we ever hear of the Edomites, the Idumeans. Of course, one of those people is King Herod, the Idumean. And he was an Idumean, and King Herod was forcibly, not him, but his grandfather, was forcibly converted to Judaism. In the only case of forced conversion that we ever read about in Jewish history, the Idumeans are forcibly converted to Judaism by the Maccabean kings like Alexander Jannaeus and John Hyrcanus. They convert the Edomites to Judaism. One of those people winds up being King Herod. So there was another time, which you could say will eventually wind up with, obviously the Idumeans were not powerful. And again, the Idumeans don't become powerful, but King Herod becomes powerful. He marries into the Maccabean family and winds up sneaking his way in a most Jacob way, by the way. King Herod was the most manipulative and very intelligent, one of the most intelligent kings in Jewish history. He's also brutal king who kills his own family, kills his own sons with his Maccabean queen. Um, but he is Idumean. So interestingly, prophetically, that does happen to some extent with the Idumeans. Though I would argue it really doesn't happen because it's not like the Idumeans become powerful under King Herod. He King Herod considers himself a Jewish king. I mean, he's very Roman, but he doesn't call himself an Idumean king. He calls himself the king of Judea. So anyway,
Remind me, how does this compare with Ishmael's blessing?
blessing,
They
well,
both live by the sword. These people live by
it's
the
similar,
sword.
right? Yeah, it's there. It says he's gonna, live not by the sword, but in battle with other people. We'll go back. I can show it to you real quick. But yeah, there's this understanding that you're not gonna live in peace with your neighbors. You're not a peaceful guy. You're a you're going to be a fighter, but it does say you're going to enjoy, you know,
The fat of the
you're going to
land.
enjoy the live. You'll be okay. You're going to have the fat of the earth, right? And the dew of the heaven. So that you get something. It's not like you don't get anything, but you do have to serve your brother. But eventually you'll break free. So that's an interesting, again, maybe a little tell of when this was actually written. All right, but we're not done. We're going to read a little bit more. Can't finish right here.
Now Esau harbored a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing that his father had given him. And Esau said to himself, "Let but the mourning period of my father come, and I will kill my brother Jacob." When the words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is consoling himself by planning to kill you. Now, my son, listen to me. Flee at once to Haran, to my brother Lavan. Stay with him a while until your brother's fury subsides. Until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will fetch you from there. Let me not lose you both in one day."
So I think it's really important that they're not talking about, this happens not necessarily the day that this whole scene goes down, but I mean, it's possible, but it seems as though, you know, um, it seems as though there is definitely when she says, "I don't want to lose both of you in the same day," the assumption is that obviously Esau is never going to speak to Rebecca again. She's now going to be dead to her, her, her son is never going to want to see her again. But I'll lose you because you'll be dead, and he already hates me. So that's the understanding of it. It could also be that once Esau kills you, he's dead. He'll be killed. Okay. So, I mean, the problem of why we have to read this today is because this is the link to the story that comes after that we're going to read next week. But I don't know that we can't read it. I mean, if we don't read it while the story is fresh, we're only going to read two more verses. Or actually, it boggles my mind that the chapter was broken here, but you could see that the Gentile scholars, Christian scholars who put chapters and verses didn't understand that this is all one story. And this is why I wanted to read it as one unit today. Because look what happens here. These last verses.
Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am disgusted with my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries a Hittite woman like these from among the native women, what good will life be to me?" So Isaac sent for Jacob and blessed him. He instructed him, saying, "You shall not take a wife from among the Canaanite women. Go up to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife there from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May El Shaddai bless you and make you fertile and numerous, so that you become an assembly of peoples. May you and your offspring be granted the blessing of Abraham, that you may possess the land where you are sojourning, which God assigned to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob off, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, mother of Jacob and Esau. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him off to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, charging him as he blessed him, "You shall not take a wife from among the Canaanite women," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and gone to Padan Aram, Esau realized that the Canaanite women displeased his father Isaac. So Esau went to Ishmael and took to wife, in addition to the wives he had, Mahalat, the daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, sister of Nevayot.
And that's the way the Torah portion ends. That's not the way the portion ends for the way the Christians broke it, but that's the way our story ends. And the reason that it ends that way is because the J and the P author just wove together, two stories were woven together. I want to show you, and I wanted you to see it today. There are two blessings that are given to Jacob. One in the J author, which is the one we just read, the very famous one. And then there's this blessing in the P version, which is what we always expected, which is that Isaac blessed Jacob and said, "May God make you numerous and assembly." That's the blessing. Now, it's nowhere near as memorable or as powerful as the scene we just read. Thank God we have the J version. But in the P version, the blessing is connected to taking the right wife. And that's why the very beginning part that we read was the P author. If you read the P author without the whole section we just read, the section we just talked about for an hour and a half of what we did, the story really begins, or in the P author, the story goes from right here. Goes right from here. When Esau was 40 years old, he took to wife Judith, the daughter of Beeri, and the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac sent to Jacob and said, "You shall not take a wife from among the Canaanite women. Go to Padan Aram." Now, the J author has a wonderful way of telling the story, which is that Rebekah's idea is to get her son out of the house so that he survives. And that's how she gets him out. The P author doesn't care. It doesn't even matter to the P author. The P author is Isaac sees that his son Esau is marrying these Canaanite women, and instead he tells his son, "Don't take a Canaanite wife. Get out of here." Again, I'm just showing it to you because if you read it, it makes a lot of sense. It's also not a great story, but it does make a lot of sense, which is that the P author is really only concerned with making sure Jews and Canaanites don't marry. And again, look at how rich the J version is. It says the same thing to some extent about the Canaanite women, but not like this. Because Rebekah says, "I am disgusted with my life because of the Hittite women. If Jacob marries the Hittite women like these, I am going to, like, if you look at this, the way this exists,
I'm going to stick my head in the oven like bye-bye birdie.
well, but it also is the way the story is woven together, you don't even realize what just happened, which is that one of the stories really is, you got to get out of here. We're getting you out of here. The other story is, you're getting out of here because I don't want you around these women. And they're both true. I mean, there's a truth to both of them, but they're woven together so beautifully that you don't notice it. But they really make a lot of sense. And maybe you could make the argument more sense because of the blessing. The blessing here never needed to be stolen, because in the P author, it was always coming anyways.
Mm.
The P author is right here. May El Shaddai bless you and make you fertile so you become. That's it. That's it. It's a boring blessing. I'm not going to say it's not boring. I'm not going to say it's well written. It's not well written, but it's take the blessing, and that's just there. So it's really weird because a lot of people are like, "What's with the second blessing? Why is he blessing him again?" Make the argument there's two blessings. There's two blessings, and one of the blessings is given to Jacob when he goes and he's going to go get married, and it's his send off blessing. It's also not anywhere near the drama of the other one, which again, because we have both stories, they're just part of who we are. They're part of our story, and they're always going to be a part of our story. And what's going to be beautiful is the wonderful midrash that I'll share with you next week, which is what happens when Jacob goes on that journey. Because in the midrash, Esau's not going to forget. Esau's not done. The Bible, it's like, we're not going to see Esau again for 8 more chapters. Midrash doesn't like that. Esau's not going to let this go. So we're going to share with you the midrash that Esau sends out a hit team. Yeah, he sends out some people to kill Jacob. And it's a wonderful midrash. But again, it's based on the fact that no. This isn't just get out of here. It's not over. The feelings are still there. And Jacob is not going to get out unscathed out of that house. So it's a really powerful story. I mean, we could have talked about it for another hour today, because the last part of it we were kind of rushed through, but we'll come back to it a little bit next week when we talk about Jacob fleeing to Haran, going back to where his father didn't go to get a wife. He's going back to his uncle's house. This is a really interesting manifestation of Rebecca and her family, and what we learn about that other part of our family that's still back up in Aram, that was up in Syria, the other part of Abraham's and Isaac's and now Jacob's family that live in Aram. So we'll come back to that, and we'll go back to going back up north in the next scene. And the next 8 chapters or so are about Jacob in Syria, in Aram. And it's a interesting set of narratives about Jacob. And I got news for you. That's it for Isaac. Isaac chapters 25, 26, and 27. That's all we see from him. And when we take in the totality of what we know about Isaac, it isn't a lot. He gets acted on, not acting himself. He's not the protagonist. He's almost the foil. He's almost the some would say the butt of the joke, rather than the guy who's making people laugh. People will be laughing at him. And not laughing, but tragically laughing, going, what a schmuck. But it is a complicated legacy of Isaac. And again, only one of our patriarchs who doesn't marry more than one woman. At least it doesn't say he marries more than one woman. He never leaves the land of Israel. He seems to, at the face of it, he seems to love his wife. Doesn't stop her from tricking him, but he seems to love her, and he listens to her. Some would say maybe he's dominated by her, but anyways, those are the things that we'll think about, the consequences of it. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Judith, for reading, and we will see you next week for chapter 28, but more importantly, for the next parsha, Vayetze. and the journey continues. All right, everybody, take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. That was a great
Yeah.
study. Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.